Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. We're excited to have you here, and we're hoping to fill some bums in the seats here to get this pitch battle going. So, let's move right into presenting our judges and our contestants. So we have, from Oroco Resource, Adam Smith, Vice President of Business Development and Corporate Finance. I'm hoping he's on the side wings there. I might start introducing the judges because I don't see on the side any of the contestants. All right, so our first judge that we're going to present today, we have Remi Piet, co-founder and senior partner at Embellie Advisory. Oh, they're all coming up on me quickly here. All right.
I can follow instructions. You'll be the mining company.
Adam Smith, Vice President of Business Development and Corporate Finance at Oroco Resource.
I don't know.
We have also Paul Gait.
How are you doing? Nice to meet you.
Co-CIO and Director of Research of Azvalor. And on Zoom, we're going to have 4 of our attendees. So we have Chris, CEO of Chris Doornbos, CEO of E3.
That's on me.
Metals. We have
Hi.
Filip. Filip, are you up there? Yes. Filip Kozlowski, CEO of Leading Edge Materials. And we have Matt Geiger. I hope I pronounced that right. I hope I'm not butchering it. Managing Partner at MJG Capital. Who are we missing? Oh, here we go. Christopher Ecclestone, Principal and Mining Strategist from Hallgarten Company.
It's me.
So here's how it goes.
Finally.
Each company has a 3-minute pitch presentation, after which there is a 7-minute opportunity for the judges to ask questions of that presentation, and then we move on to the next one. So our first presenter today is Oroco Resource, Adam Smith.
Thanks so much. Thank you. So Oroco is a Canadian company based in Vancouver. We are developing the Santo Tomas porphyry copper deposit, one of the world's largest copper deposits in the hands of a junior mining company at a time of heightened demand for copper and diminished discovery of new copper deposits. Santo Tomas was established as of 1994 as a multi-billion pound copper
Sorry, Adam.
source.
I'm going to interrupt just for a second because I don't think anybody can anybody hear him? Yeah, it's okay.
Okay.
Perhaps if you take the lectern, it would be better.
That'd be great. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
By 1994, Santo Tomas had been established as a 1.4 billion ton measured, indicated, and inferred copper resource containing up to 7 million tons. Lunch. I expect you all to leave for lunch now.
Reset the clock.
It had been established as a resource containing approximately 7 million tons of contained copper, which would put it among the largest of a handful of assets of that type, owned by a junior mining company, at a time when we would expect majors to be looking for assets like this to acquire. Earlier this week, RFC Ambrian of London published research suggesting that Oroco is one of 5 companies with such large assets that were probable takeover targets. Using Ambrian's metrics from their 2018 magnum opus on copper M&A, they valued Santo Tomas as a takeover target in the range of $1.6 to $1.8 billion versus our current market cap of $500 million. So fairly straightforward path from where we are now in terms of value to significantly higher. Our advantage at Santo Tomas is that we're not exploring for something. We are confirming a historical resource, and we have the opportunity also to expand that resource. So fairly simple play, established resource. Our job is to confirm what was already defined at Santo Tomas. There's plenty of runway for expansion as well. A 3D IP program completed earlier this year indicated an order of magnitude potential to expand the deposit. So great asset, the right metal at the right time, at a time of declining discoveries of new copper assets, when we are expected as a society to consume more copper over the next generation than has been consumed in our entire history. There you go, 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. All right, Paul, would you like to start with the questions?
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you very much. I suppose the standard questions, grade, depth, capex, timeline. I mean, is this going to be built, or is this going to be sort of flirted with until BHP builds it?
This is going to be sold.
Yep.
The list of junior mining companies that have developed assets like Santo Tomas and successfully exited in a takeover by a major is long.
Yep.
The list of junior mining companies who have attempted to keep their hands on it and put an asset that could have a capex of up to $2 billion into production is very short. So the end game for our investors and ourselves is very clear. It's the sale to a major, and as I mentioned, this is one of very few assets of this size available, owned by a junior mining company for acquisition by a major.
And so, do I understand the reserve that you've got there? What was the figure that you gave there?
The resource established in 1994 and used in the pre-feasibility study conducted by Bateman was approximately 1.8 billion tons of MI&I.
Yep.
The measured and indicated portion of that is 956 million tons at a grade of 0.38 equivalent.
Okay.
Within that 950 million tons, we've identified a core of 333 million tons of 0.44 copper, 0.5 equivalent when gold and silver are considered. The average development grade of projects going forward is 0.4% equivalent. So we feel that Santo Tomas, when the grade and the high grade core combined with the extremely advantageous location, would put it at the top of the list of assets to be developed.
And what price did you use to define that resource?
The price in 1994 was $1 copper.
And today?
Today,
I mean, so it was defined on $1 copper.
yeah, that's right.
And how has it been? And it's been updated since, or is
No, we have not. We're 12 holes into the program to confirm the resource.
Yep.
We will probably need a few dozen more holes before we publish a compliant resource. And what price copper we would use in such a calculation is interesting, because I think a lot of the junior mining companies that are publishing things now are using $3 copper.
Yep.
I think that's probably a dated figure. I would suggest that a conservative figure today is probably $3.30. A year from now, a conservative figure might be $3.50 or even higher.
And just one final question, if I could. I mean, when it comes to a trade sale, I mean, how active, in terms of sort of vendor that you'd be, buyer that you'd be looking for? I mean, China has obviously been incredibly active.
Yes.
And the strategic priority clearly for them to close the massive short that they have is, fairly obvious.
Absolutely.
But then, in terms of, willingness to sell to China versus willingness to sell to, one of the Western majors, how does that sort of debate, and how do those sort of factors, particularly around sort of the social license to operate, and I think everybody, we all know the sort of story of MMG and some of the issues that they had there. How does that play in your mind?
Who we ultimately sell this to, I guess the simple answer is to the highest bidder.
Yeah.
But I understand the question, and I appreciate the sentiment that, we do want to sell to a company that will operate to standards that we would agree with. Whether that is a Chinese company, whether that's a Western company, I don't know. 14 kilometers to the north of Santo Tomas is the Barachi deposit, owned by Jinzhuan of China.
Yeah.
They would be, I think, highly motivated as a potential buyer of Santo Tomas, but so would a number of other companies, including Southern Copper, the Mexican giant. And we have spoken to a number of other major mining companies, and all of them have indicated an appetite for such assets. But that's a very important consideration, making sure that you sell the asset to someone who treats the community the way we have treated the community around the project.
Perhaps let's keep moving here and make sure we get some of the other judges with some questions. Vincenzo Zinni of Stelvio Capital, CEO and founder, perhaps you can weigh in, and do you have any questions for Mr. Smith?
I think what's the next milestone for the company? What are we expecting to see in the next 6 months in terms of results? Can you give us some detail?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Sorry, could we get a little more volume on the Zoom call? Could you try that question again so we can make sure we hear it, please?
Adam, thanks for the presentation. Do you have any more? Can you tell us any milestones that we need to look in the next 6 months? Any dates where any information that you're going to publish and when just for us to keep up to date. Can you hear me?
I think I understand. You asked what is our schedule for publishing information on the project? Well, as I mentioned, we started drilling in July of this year. We are a dozen holes into that process. We just added a third rig at Santo Tomas 2 weeks ago. So I would expect a relatively steady stream of drill results coming out starting Q1 next year. I would think we'll hit the point at which we can calculate a resource at Santo Tomas, at least on one portion of the property. The portion where we've got 2 rigs currently turning would be the middle of next year. The expectation is that we'll add a 4th, even a 5th or 6th rig at Santo Tomas in Q1, Q2 next year, and we should therefore be in a position to both be releasing a steady stream of drill results, as well as reach the point that we can calculate a resource on a larger area of the property by year-end, first quarter of 2023. Keep in mind that Santo Tomas from north to south is at least 5 kilometers. It's a couple kilometers wide, the deposit is. And the IP survey we recently completed indicates that mineralization extends well beyond 600 or 800 meters of depth. So it's a big project. It's going to take a lot of meters to define.
All right, we have just a few seconds left. Remi, do you have any final questions?
Yeah, I got a couple of questions on political risk in Mexico specifically. AMLO changed the structure of disbursements of royalties from going some parts in the ground to actually channel it through the federal level at the Education Ministry, which means that likely no one will actually see the money on the ground, or very, very limited. How do you actually mitigate for this? And same thing maybe at the governor level. You have a Morena governor just elected a couple of weeks ago and now in office. What are your relations with him?
We've met with the governors of both states that cover our project. The project straddles the border of Sinaloa and Chihuahua. We've met, as I say, with the governor of both those states. They've expressed support for the project. We have been operating in Mexico since 2006. Our first project there went into production in 2013. We sold it. We still receive a royalty from it. So we're very familiar with the area. We're very familiar with the state and federal authorities there. We're very comfortable with it. There's been some statements by the new president, AMLO, in the last 3 years. He's made some fairly aggressive anti-mining statements. That has not translated into new legislation. Any attempt by him to introduce legislation that is negative to the mining industry has been defeated. Okay. We keep a very close ear to the ground in terms of what may be coming.
I'm going to have to wrap it up there. We're running right out of time. Did you want one last little comment before we move on?
The only legislation change we expect is the closing of a tax loophole in the coming 3 years. Otherwise, Mexico remains a top 5, top 8 jurisdiction.
All right, Oroco Resources, Adam Smith, thank you very much. All right. Next up, we have Chris Doornbos, CEO of E3 Metals. And he's got his 3-minute presentation, and then we'll have questions. I'm going to ask the judges, stick to one question. That way we can do a good round robin of questions from all the judges. Thank you.
Sorry. Excellent. Thank you very much. My name is Chris Doornbos. I'm the CEO of E3 Metals Corp. E3 Metals combines a massive resource in Alberta, 7 million tons of lithium carbonate equivalent, with a new technology that we have developed in-house here to produce that lithium. E3 is situated in Alberta, developing a new industry for lithium production here in the province. The benefit that we have, and then one of the key metrics for E3 Metals, is that we are building on the backbone of the oil and gas industry. We are repurposing a historic asset discovered by ExxonMobil in 1947 that has been a huge prolific producer of fluids. E3 Metals is a lithium brine company. We produce lithium from this brine from an aquifer that has been discovered 70 years ago. That was a huge prolific producer of oil that is at the end of its oil life cycle. And so we're simply transitioning a historic asset here in the province to become a lithium producer. The industry in Alberta, therefore, is well supported on the backbone of this sophisticated oil and gas industry. Benefits to that: stable workforce. This is 40 kilometers north of Calgary, Alberta. We've got a very streamlined regulatory process here. We've got a bill on the floor right now of the government supporting lithium development with Bill 82. putting the demonstration or the regulatory framework into the hands of the Alberta Energy Regulator, who's the oil and gas regulator, which is a very streamlined process to get permits out locally. So E3 Metals is a direct lithium extraction technology developer. We've been working on this technology for the past 5 years. We are a leader in the space for direct lithium extraction. How this works for us is our brine passively flows through the system. We're able to extract lithium at high purity and high concentration rates. And we're able then to put that concentrate that we create through conventional lithium processing methodologies to make high purity lithium hydroxide. And when you look at the landscape of lithium companies today, they were never designed to produce the purity that is required for battery metals. E3's project is one of the few that out of the back of the mine Gait will produce a battery quality lithium product. We are going for lithium hydroxide based on the North American market for the higher energy dense batteries that are being designed and manufactured locally in North America. Of course, Europe is much further ahead in terms of the battery manufacturing, and probably the first bit of lithium will end up in Europe, which is why we're here. ESG is a very important part of E3's business. Inherent to DLE, because we do not put this brine on the ground and try to evaporate it in these large ponds, it is a closed loop system with a very small footprint. We have no interaction with the freshwater aquifers, which has been a major problem for lithium developers over the past couple of years. And we also plan to produce a product with a very reduced carbon footprint, aiming for carbon neutral, which is generally the first question that gets asked by the OEMs: what is your carbon footprint? So we've got a great project in Alberta, and I'm looking forward to some questions.
Thank you so much, Chris, and thank you for nailing it on the time. I did fail to mention this is a pitch battle, so there is a prize, and the judges are going to confer, and they're going to decide on who gets $1 million, or two companies that can get $500,000 each, all virtual, of course, as the world is today. And we're looking forward to hearing what those results are like when we get to the end of it. So moving on to the question part for Chris. Why don't we start with Christopher Ecclestone and get that part going?
Good, thanks. You didn't mention the CapEx. I know these DLE procedures are a lot more streamlined than Solaris or the way more complicated spodumene. So theoretically, there should be a much shorter time frame to production. And it's all about production these days. So how fast can we see a end product? Are you doing a pilot plant, or are you just going to go straight to producing? Do you need a pilot plant? I don't see why.
Yeah, good to see you again, Christopher. We do need a pilot because we have a new technology, and so it's driven by your project finance. And if we didn't have this pilot in front of us, we would be marching towards commercial. Permitting in Alberta is very short time window, about 12 to 18 months to get all of the permits we need. We start drilling wells once we have those permits. That's the majority of our resources, just drilling some wells. But yes, so 2022, we'll be rolling out our pilot plant to demonstrate the DLE technology, and then we'll move on to pre-feasibility and then on to commercial design and construction. So we're aiming for 2025 for first lithium.
But surely the DLE thing is already being tested by the likes of Standard Lithium and a couple of others that are very similar. What new is there to learn? Why would you need a pilot plant if you were just going to use the same technology? Was it dramatically different? 2025 is still a long way off.
It's not dramatically different, but it is ours and it is different. Difference between us and Standards, we developed our own sorbent technology, where they've developed a process and bought their sorbent. And the benefit to that is that we use conventional processing equipment, so we're not designing the pilot plant. We're going to a vendor of ion exchange technology that designs pilots. So, but still important to test this in a real world environment, to de-risk it, to move it through the process.
Remi, perhaps you have a question that you want to go in?
Yeah, my question is regarding First Nations in Western Canada because they're quite active. I mean, you've seen the Wet'suwet'en First Nation blocking the Coastal GasLink. You've seen TransCanada, who's not able to push a couple of their projects. The only one, if I'm not wrong, that moves forward is Project Reconciliation with the Trust Fund for Indigenous Communities. Do you have any plan in place right now in terms of working with First Nations and including them in terms of the, let's say, the outcome and the impact that it has on local development?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I would say that First Nation consultation is very important to E3 Metals, and we do take it very seriously, and we do engage, and we'll continue to engage with local First Nation. The conversations that you're talking about and those issues are generally in British Columbia. Yep. Alberta is where we are located. This is farmers' fields in an oil and gas centric environment, so we're not on traditional territory, but we're not on reserve land in Alberta. So we consult with First Nations in the traditional territory of which we sit, which is Treaty 6. But we're not on reserve land. We're on farmers' fields. So the ownership of the land generally farmers in South Central Alberta.
Thank you, Vincenzo. Any questions?
Just in terms of, you said Europe is probably going to be your first sort of market. And how do you see, what else in London, do you see the expansion of the market? What's the strategy? Is the focus on the time being, or is Europe going to be the only market with this production?
Yeah, I think that was. I'm sorry, your connection is a little bit broken. Perhaps if you could type your question into the chat, maybe we can read it from here. And in the meantime, Paul, I'll hand you the microphone if you have any questions.
I'm here for Chris. Last November, export to the E3. This affected you guys months ago.
Sorry, Matt. Same challenge. We're going to have to get you to type those questions into the chat because we cannot understand them at all, unfortunately, with the communication we have right now. Paul, the floor is yours.
I suppose my one question is sort of what did SQM get wrong with Mount Holland then? So, I mean, I presume that they know something about brines, and yet their revealed preference is Mount Holland. That doesn't make a lot of sense given what you're saying. So I'm just wondering what they've misunderstood about the lithium market.
Completely different projects. So SQM's brine projects are evaporative solar, so they're pouring brine on ground, waiting a couple of years for the sun to work at it. Lithium is the most soluble element, so it's the last thing to come out, so it's the furthest on down that chain. So it's not a DLE process. DLE process is direct extracting lithium from these brines. We don't use evaporation ponds. And completely different geological environment as well. We have the ability to put our brine back into the aquifer, which we take it out of, which is a fundamental characteristic for all DLE projects. You cannot do that in salars. You have to pull the brine out, you have to use it. For us, we can put the brine down because we return 100% of the brine. We don't use it. We just take the lithium out and we put it right back into the aquifer.
So in other words, we're just saying that you couldn't use a DLE technology on the Salar de Atacama?
In certain places you could not. You need to be able to put the brine back into the aquifer. And in what SQM has, I'm not going to speak on their behalf, but from what I understand, they cannot, or at least not 100%.
Thank you. We have just a few seconds. Is it possible to populate one of those questions up on the screen? No?
Right.
Okay.
You can't write it.
Yeah, unfortunately, with the connection, that's the closest we can get is this. If we can get the questions in writing, then perhaps we can ask.
I think it was
We can't write. There's no ability to write.
Oh, there's no chat available. Okay. Well, we'll do our best given the technology hiccups that we're having. That takes us out of time for that one. Thank you very much, Chris, for your presentation, and the judges for their questions. We're going to move on to Filip Kozlowski, CEO of Leading Edge Materials.
Thank you. Can you hear me well?
Yes, clearly.
No echo?
No echo.
Excellent.
No.
So,
Good.
CEO of Leading Edge Materials, we're a TSX listed company. Quickly show you the disclaimer, as there's very little time for disclaimers along the presentation.
Yeah, I read that.
And I took the opportunity to throw myself at Anne's suggested innovative presentation format. So our company is all about batteries for electric cars. The electric cars, they need electric motors. The electric motors, they need the permanent magnets, and the permanent magnets need rare earth elements. As a razor sharp focus on these raw materials, we're also only looking at projects and developing projects within the European Union. So we have a graphite mine in central Sweden. We have a rare earth project, one of the world's most significant heavy rare earth element deposits in south central Sweden. And we have a very early stage exploration project for nickel cobalt in Romania. This is our graphite mine. It's a fully built, permitted graphite mine and processing plant. We've been developing the downstream processes required to upgrade our graphite concentrate into a coated spherical purified graphite, which is the active anode material product that eventually gets sold to the battery factories. Europe is at the forefront of developing their own battery industry. We're looking at 1 million tons of anode materials demand per year. By 2030, there's very few alternatives to source this from within Europe. We announced the PEA, showing some very fantastic numbers on this project, where we have the mine to anode material production over 15 years. We're a drip in the ocean in terms of solving the future demand. We have hydropower. It comes at a cheap cost in Sweden with a very low carbon footprint. We've done the ISO-compliant life cycle assessment demonstrating this. We also have non-binding plans for a joint venture with a silicon composite company in Australia. A bigger project for us is the Norra Kärr rare earth element project. It's a unique project. It's a world-class project, and it's only €1. We've redesigned the project through a scoping study where we've completely separated the mining and beneficiation. We do that at this environmentally sensitive site, whereas all the chemical processing gets done at a separate off-site location. Where it's the project with one of the lowest radionuclide content globally, and it's a deposit of significant size. Economics around this project, it's not as mature as the graphite project, but it is a large project. It has a huge potential, and it is the only one that can solve Europe's need. We got a new board of directors. I myself came on as a CEO last year. We got Lars-Erik Johansson, going back to his Swedish roots, ex-Ivanhoe CEO. Daniel, who's at the conference, he probably criticized me for this TikTok presentation. Largest shareholder, Eric Kraft, is on the board of directors as well. And time is running out, so we've gone from $5 million to $50 million in market cap. I think we have a lot of upside. We're discounted compared with our graphite peers and our rare earth peers.
We're going to have to,
and we can raise 6 million Canadian from existing warrants and options that are in the money.
All right, Filip. Thank you, and good job tightening it up right at the end there. We're going to start our questions with Paul.
With me?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So the capital that you're going to raise, though, looks sort of very, very significant, though, in order to develop these relative to your market cap. So just sort of, wondering, how are you sort of thinking about that? Where is the money going to come from in the first instance? And is that actually going to be, you've got sort of PEA, so presumably there's quite a bit of work yet to get to the sort of stage where you're actually sort of committing CapEx, in terms of construction. So that sort of two-phase approach about how much do you need to get to, an investment-ready project, and then thereafter what the intention, is by way of funding.
A few points there. So, absolutely, 2 scoping studies where, the scoping study for the rare earth project is actually backtracking on a PFS in 2015. Where for the graphite project, we need to build a demonstration plant until we even start looking at project financing. We're more capex efficient than some of our peers due to already having the mine and processing plant. So if you look at capex per ton of anode product, we have a lower number there.
Is it for this
in terms of the rare earth project, for us, it's all about going through and regaining our mining lease. That opens up for pilot plant as well. So the money we can raise for the next 12-18 months covers our funding needs until we come to more significant capex expenditures. On the longer term horizon, the strategic importance of the projects and various public funding instruments that are being launched by the European Commission is an opportunity for us to fund these projects at a very low cost of capital. For example, there's a raw materials bridge fund being launched next year by the European Commission, 150 to 200 million euros, to bring projects from scoping pre-feasibility stage to bankable feasibility stage when they hand it off to private investors.
Thanks, Filip. We have a couple of questions from Matt Geiger here. Please touch on the company's working capital position and the catalysts that we can expect from the company before the next financing.
Yep. So last quarter, third quarter, which is available, that was around 2 million Canadian. We recently had warrants expiring. The largest shareholder got a third of the shares are held by insiders. Those were exercised, so we're looking at 3.5 after that. We are considering significant undervaluation. We are not looking to go out to raise new capital from outside investors. We'd rather use the instruments at hand. 8 to 9 million Canadian that we can raise from that is more than enough for the development plans we have. The catalysts, we're doing bulk trial work with our equipment suppliers on the graphite side, for purification, sterilization. That material will then be further processed by our potential future partner in Australia for the finalized composite anode materials. That will lead to a final decision on incorporating that joint venture and moving towards the demonstration plan. For the rare earth project, we're looking to do bulk beneficiation test work on the magnetic separation. Outside of that, it's incorporating the new plan for the project into the mine lease application that is lodged with the government. And all focus on that because we're significantly undervalued for this project. That's our immediate focus.
All right. There is a second question which I'm going to hold off and perhaps let some of the other judges ask questions. Christopher, did you have a question?
In light of the problems in the past at North Shah, your capex is pretty big. What sort of guarantees are there, even if you got the license to start building, that there wouldn't be another flip-flop along the road that would leave you with a half-built plant and, sort of like aggressive neighbors, standing in your way?
With Vincenzo.
You'd never take a final investment decision until you're fully permitted. And in terms of the high capex, relative to other rare earth projects, it's not that high. So rare earth projects are capex intensive. But on a comparable basis, North Shah is not that bad. Consider the location. We're 500 meters from the biggest highway in Sweden. We got easy access to electricity, to water. So it is an efficient project in that sense. And in terms of the historic problems, we won't invest in the project on a significant way until it's finally permitted.
Might you not build the whole structure that you're envisaging and instead send product to maybe Silmet, concentrate to Silmet and get it processed there, or are you determined to go all the way with your processing of the rare earth oxides?
Well, in short, separating the beneficiation from the chemical processing does give us opportunities to think more creatively around where we want to do the cracking and leaching. Silmet is not big enough to handle the amount of mixed rare earth oxides that would come out from Rashal and especially on the heavy rare side. So, that would have to be a development project as well. But we're very open looking around in Europe. We can locate the chemical plant in Sweden. We can locate it in Finland, Estonia, Poland, Germany. Everything's on the table. And flip-flopping, there's significant support from the European Commission to have these kind of projects built in Europe. With the new government in Sweden, just recently yesterday, they said, we love mines, we want to build more mines. So I don't think there's going to be flip-flop in the near term. So we have positive momentum there.
All right, Remi, do you have any questions?
Yeah, quickly maybe. The European Commission came out with a strategy for critical mineral supply, and they mentioned rare earth and graphite as one of those that should be developed inside the EU. That was met immediately around Narachar with a media campaign and some kind of not in my backyard reaction from your people in your area of influence. How do you meet these, and how do you make sure that that doesn't become like a key hard point for NGOs to just jump in?
Well, it's already been the key point for the last 5-10 years. So I think with the increased political support, with the critical raw material strategy, and the new industrial strategy for critical raw materials, I think there's the decisiveness from the top level in Europe. On the government level in Sweden, it's the same recognition. Where you lose the traction is between the national and the local level, both for the people living there and also for the politicians. One of the key pillars of the European Raw Materials Alliance is to raise awareness and acceptance. And I think we have to accept that the same people that are not in my backyard for our type of projects, that are not in my backyard for wind power.
All right, Filip, sorry to keep things fair. I'm going to have to wrap it there and give everybody equal time here. That wraps up the presentations. It wraps up the questions that we have. So we're going to move on now to the allocation of $1 million. So we have each one of you. You can decide either give all that money to one company or you can decide to two companies. So let's start with our online judges. All right, Matt, did you want to text yours in, or did you want to try and use your microphone?
How do we keep this?
Yeah, sorry, no, it's still choppy.
Okay.
All right, and Vincenzo, are you able to try and use your mic, or are you gonna just text it in?
1, 2, 3.
I think that gives us an answer. I think you're gonna have to just use your phone and text it in, perhaps. That's the only way we're going to get your results. All right, so let's go through.
I'll just write it down on a piece of paper and hold it up to
there
the camera.
There you go. We got brains in the room. Yeah. You can always write it down and hold up a piece of paper. All right, Remi, how are you feeling?
Oh, there's actually a piece of paper right there.
Oh, what do we got?
Leading material. Leading edge material.
Leading edge.
Leading edge, okay. I'm also going with leading edge personally, because I know the EU is going to be pushing strongly for the rare earth project and Norachar. There are some funding possibilities through the EU that I think they're going to be tapping into. License to operate is going to be very important. If they have the right strategy to mitigate it, that should be successful. Not saying that I don't trust AMLO for different reasons. That's maybe my concerns. And in case of Alberta, that was my close second in that case.
All right, Christopher.
Okay, I'm going to give half my money to E3 and half of my money to Leading Edge. I'm giving it only to Leading Edge for their graphite project, because I think with a 50 million market cap, that represents the graphite project. I think everyone's discounting that Norachar will ever get off the runway. I like E3, but E3 need to speed themselves up. Their product's in the ground. They've got the technology they should be producing next year. And I love Oroco's project, but with a $500 million market cap, they don't need my money.
All right, so I just want to clarify, make sure I put the points down properly. You're going to allocate half and half, right?
Yep.
Half to Leading Edge?
And half to E3.
And half to E3. All right, thank you. And
here, Leading Edge material.
Matt, did you what do you have? Leading Edge.
Matt is giving it to Leading Edge.
All right.
Largely for free.
That leaves us Paul.
This is my attitude.
I'm going to give it all to Adam. So do you need my money?
I will gladly take it, yes.
Okay. There we go. I think it's easier to sell than to build. I'm not entirely convinced the assets where they are, that necessarily implies that they can't be they can't be developed, or that someone will believe they can develop them, which is what you need. And I think that the path to monetization can be much quicker than potentially elsewhere, particularly for new technology, which I've got to say always leaves me sucking my teeth slightly unless I can actively say I understand it, which unfortunately in 3 minutes that I can't say I can, whereas copper, conventional, traditional, I think one does understand it.
Excellent. Well, it looks like we have our results here. I want to make sure I didn't miss anybody. Everybody is accounted for. So, Oroco Resources, 1 vote for $1 million. Chris Doornbos with E3 Metals has a half a vote. And Filip Kozlowski, 3.5 votes for the virtual $1 million. Congratulations. If you were here, you would get this lovely bottle of champagne.
We'll take it, don't worry. We'll share it.
The rest of us will enjoy sharing it on your behalf. Chin chin.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Once again, I'd like to thank all the judges, especially the participants. Always a challenge to do a 3-minute presentation, to get asked those questions, being in the hot seat. Excellent job by everybody. Enjoy the rest of the conference, and much thanks to Minds and Money for everything they've done, and Andrew Thake for organizing such a great event.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Can we give a round of applause?